Say goodbye to the PetroDollar because the PetroYuan is on the rise. Join us as we talk about what this historic change between the US and China means and how it will change things. Watch now to see how China's brave move to switch from the PetroDollar to the PetroYuan has set off a panic. At the point when it was first utilized, BRICS represented Brazil, Russia, India, and China. It became BRICS when South Africa joined. In 2001, Goldman Sachs representative Jim O'Neill concocted the term. Goldman Sachs anticipated that these four nations would be the main on the planet constantly by 2050. This guarantee was for the most part founded on how quick they were developing, how they were another market, how modest their work was, the great way their populace was, and the number of regular assets that they had. Despite the fact that BRICS is certainly not an authority, political, or exchange bunch, it was believed that it could make major areas of strength for a coalition. In 2013, BRICS made up around 27% of the world's gross domestic product, and the 2.88 billion individuals who lived in the 5 nations made up around 42% of the total populace all in all. The BRICS nation makes up 26% of all the land on the planet. All foreign trade is done in dollars, which is something we all know. More countries are trying to trade in their own currencies, which could change this trend. The Indian rupee is also making great progress in this area. Now, 18 countries, Russia, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Botswana, Fiji, Germany, Guyana, Israel, Kenya, Malaysia, Mauritius, Myanmar, New Zealand, Seychelles, Tanzania, Uganda, and the UK are allowed to trade in Indian currency instead of the dollar. There is now a lot of talk about the PetroYuan because of these talks and the current war between Russia and Ukraine. In fact, China has been pushing the yuan as a currency for oil deals more and more, trying to take the lead from the dollar in commodity markets and weaken US power. What is a PetroYuan though? What does it have in common with the PetroDollar? And why is China trying to get more countries to use the PetroYuan? We take a closer look and tell you everything you need to know. PetroYuan told us why. There is a PetroYuan, just like there is a PetroDollar. For those who don't know, PetroDollars are the US dollars that come from selling crude oil around the middle of the 1970s when oil prices were going up, oil exporting companies had big trade, and current account surpluses. Will BRICS take PetroYuan or PetroBRICS? The need for better alternatives of the dollar as a reserve currency. The dollar and the euro, which together make up 80% of the world's reserve currency assets, have a huge hold on the world's economies, which is becoming more and more of a problem. This was already a problem after the financial crisis of 2008 and the age of 0% interest rates that followed, which messed up the prices of assets. The problem has gotten worse since the end of the plague. First, the US's use of the dollar as a tool and the seizure of Russian reserves of dollars showed the world how far and important the dollar is. Also, the US's attempt to stop internal inflation by ending the era of zero interest rates caused major problems on the world's currency markets because it made the dollar stronger. Since the best asset in the world now gives positive returns, money from all over the world poured into the dollar. By late 2022, the dollar had risen about 15% against global currencies and 30% against the Japanese yen. Central banks around the world could either raise rates with the US Federal Reserve, like the RBI in India, which would hurt growth but weaken their currency, or they could keep rates the same and see their currency fall, like the Bank of Japan did, which caused the yen to drop a lot. When their exchange rates went down, the prices of goods that were paid in dollars like oil went down in dollars, but not always in other currencies. Exporting inflation is a way of saying that the US spread some of its rising prices to other countries. PetroYuan influence. PetroDollar versus PetroYuan. Could China replace the US as the biggest player in the Middle East as its relationship with Saudi Arabia grows? Saudi Aramco is one of the biggest oil organizations on the planet, a state-claimed business that has been hit hard by the worldwide drop in oil costs. This month, Aramco conveyed an outline that said renminbi notes might be given as a component of the security conspire. Nikkei Asia said that the arrangement likewise recorded the dangers, for example, stresses over liquidity and the way that money would be difficult to get beyond China. The US dollar used to be the primary cash on the world oil market, yet presently it faces rivalry from the Chinese yuan and different monetary standards. China is one of Saudi Arabia's greatest exchange accomplices and one of the greatest purchasers of Saudi oil. However, the Gulf country has had strong strategic ties with the US for a long time. Long before Donald Trump took office and started a trade war with Beijing, China was making noises about challenging the dollar's position as the world's universal currency, said Joseph Dana, editor-in-chief of Emerge 85, a lab that studies the changes in developing markets and how they affect the world. This would give China more control over its economy and help with long-term economic plans to challenge the US as the world's only economic powerhouse. But getting rid of the dollar is a lot easier to say than to do. The US has given Riyadh the most weapons of any country. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute says that between 2015 and 2019, 73% of the arms Saudi Arabia bought came from the US. Also, after the US helped broker peace agreements between Israel and the UAE and Bahrain, Saudi Arabia may be the next Gulf country to normalize relationships with Israel, according to a story from Eurasia Times. US President Donald Trump has kept pushing for arms sales, even though several political leaders and critics have raised concerns about Saudi Arabia's violations of human rights, Riyadh's part in the Yemen war, and the brutal murder of a Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Biden told the board on unfamiliar relations last year, now is the right time to bring equilibrium, point of view, and steadfastness to our qualities back into our connections in the Center East. We will clarify that the US won't ever from now on surrender to its qualities just to purchase oil or sell weapons. China, which has the world's second largest economy, wants to increase its influence in the Gulf. During his 6-country trip through Asia in March 2017, King Salman visited Beijing and made deals worth up to $65 billion with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Saudi Arabia thinks Asia is a good market and has been trying to get a bigger part of the market there. Is China making more of an impact in the Gulf? Randolph Bell, who runs the Global Energy Center at the Atlantic Council, a think tank in the country's capital, told US News, absolutely, these connections are getting stronger. However, Saudi Arabia's long-running competition with Iran, which Washington backs with its most extreme tension methodology, could make it hard to fabricate vital ties. Then again, China is important for the Iran atomic arrangement, or the Joint Thorough Strategy. China and Russia are planning to take on the petrodollar. The domination of the petrodollar is being challenged by the growing ties between China and Russia and China's efforts to make its currency more important on the world market. The US dollar is still the most important currency on the market and in the world's currency savings. It has been the preferred currency for oil trade since the 1970s. But a number of recent deals and high-level meetings have tried to make the dollar less important. The petrodollar could be hurt by the new geopolitical alliances in which China and Russia work together to fight against a global order led by the United States. China has been trying for years to make more trade deals in yuan, to make its currency more important on the global markets and question the US dollar's dominance in international trade, including energy trade. During an historic trip to Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, in December, Chinese President Xi Jinping said that oil and gas deals between China and the Arab Gulf countries should be settled in yuan at the Shanghai Petroleum and National Gas Exchange. China will continue to buy a lot of crude oil from GCC countries, increase its imports of liquefied natural gas, strengthen cooperation in upstream oil and gas development, engineering services, storage, transportation, and refining, and make full use of the Shanghai Petroleum and Natural Gas Exchange as a platform to settle oil and gas trade in yuan, Xi said in December, as reported by Reuters. Even though the Chinese currency is becoming more important in international trade, the yuan only makes up 2.7% of the market, while the US dollar makes up 41%. That's all for the video. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. We'll be back soon.